once again a Category 5. This is not a tremendous surprise given what we saw earlier in the Air Force Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance data, where based on the flight level winds and the step frequency microwave radiometer, the instrument that mounted on the underside of the wing, and it can remotely measure wind speeds all the way up to Cat 5. That was what did it, and it is now a Category 5 with max winds of 160 miles per hour as the center is very close to the northern central coast of Cuba. Pressure is at 924, and it continues to move westward at 13 miles per hour. And it is a larger hurricane, wider than it was 24 hours ago in terms of the size of the eye, but of course the eye might be in the process of contracting again as re-strengthening occurs. So it has gone through an eyeball replacement cycle, and now back to Cat 5. Strong and large hurricanes, a deadly combination. And this is a sobering, scary situation, and we got to channel all that fear into getting ready before tomorrow winds of tropical storm force start to arrive in the Florida Keys and southern Florida and work their way northward. The new forecast path, a little bit of a shift to the west again, but because of the strength and the size, the width of this hurricane, you don't have to be in the cone to get life-threatening wind and water conditions. So let's not be breathing this huge sigh of relief if you're not in the cone. You're still under hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings on the southeast coast of Florida. The right edge of the cone still goes over Miami, so this is still going to affect all of the Florida Peninsula with some very dangerous conditions. The intensity forecast still essentially saying, well, we're going to have at least a Cat 4 between Cuba and the Florida Keys, so it could come ashore as a 4 or a 5 over the Keys and into southwest Florida, and then depending on exactly how much time it spends over land would determine how strong it is when it gets to northern Florida. But in any event, not a huge change here for what it means for the Florida Peninsula, especially with the increasing threat for southwest and the rest of the Gulf Coast of the Florida Peninsula. And oh, by the way, it's going to slow down and linger over the Tennessee Valley later on Tuesday and Wednesday. Even if it's not a tropical storm anymore, could still dump a tremendous amount of rainfall. Let's highlight again some of the aspects of this that are so concerning. You're starting to get some of the outer rain bands, the very outermost rain bands of Irma starting to get close to the upper Florida Keys and southeastern Florida. That will not contain tropical storm force winds, but that will be perhaps in these bands when this makes its way closer. And by tomorrow morning, you could be getting tropical storm force winds arriving in the Florida Keys and southern Florida, and then it'll be about midday when they could arrive up in the area of Naples, Fort Myers, and so forth. Again, I wanted to highlight the timing issues here, and this is because of the size of the hurricane. We are going to get the arrival of winds of tropical storm force perhaps as much as a day before the core of the hurricane might pass closest to any given point. So the time to be ready is by, about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in the Florida Keys and extreme southeastern Florida. Might take a little longer than that for the winds to arrive for tropical storm force, but you don't want to bank on that right now. This is the time you need to be ready by. So finishing things before you go to bed tonight is a good idea. And in the Florida Keys, that means get out. There is no safe place in the Florida Keys in this.
You're not saying as it goes up, would it stay 4?
Get out of the Florida Keys.
It's supposed to slow down.
In southeastern Florida, in southwestern Florida, it's about adhering to the evacuation instructions from local officials. Now, I want to talk to some of the folks who live in Collier County, in the Naples area. We talked to their emergency management officials tonight. And one thing they are saying is that you need to wake up early tomorrow morning because there might be revised, new, expanded evacuation instructions for Collier County because of the increasing threat as every hour goes by of a devastating storm surge event there. And because the winds of tropical storm force might not arrive there until, say, midday, early afternoon, there is time in the morning. And it may even take longer than that for those winds to arrive, but certainly in the morning. There's time to see what your emergency managers are saying and to do what they say so that we get as many people out of very dangerous, potentially deadly storm surge vulnerable locations and go to a safer place. And then when you get farther north, say in the Orlando area, you're talking maybe as early as late tomorrow night or early Sunday when the winds of tropical storm force could arrive. This is going to be not just a coastal event. This is going to be an inland event as well. And then as we get into Sunday morning, that's when things could start to really go downhill in northern Florida. So again, recapping that Irma has become, again, a Category 5 hurricane, maximum sustained winds at 160 miles per hour. And, oh, by the way, there has been, again, a northward extension of hurricane warnings and watches. So we will get those graphics updated for you.
Tampa.
And Paul, we will be conveying to the folks farther north that as these watches and warnings extend farther north in Florida, that time is getting shorter to prepare.
And now we got